this book. Ramadan Mubarak, friends. Let's go over some Ramadan reads. So this is going to be books with Muslim characters or books written by Muslim authors that I highly recommend. And with the friendly reminder that you should be reading Muslim books all year round. Starting off strong with the S.K. Ali universe of books. So most people have heard of Love From A to Z. This is the Muslim rep book. Adam and Zainab, Airport Meet Cute. This was the first book I felt represented in as a Muslim. When I tell you, bawled my eyes out multiple times, not even because it's a sad story, just because like reading the book and then seeing your experiences on the page is so validating and it's so exhilarating the first time. You're like, you feel seen. You're like, that's me and my story is. There's some Islamophobia in this book. And as somebody who grew up in America, visibly Muslim, I've experienced those things. And so seeing my struggles on the page, you know, it makes you feel like you're not alone. It makes you feel validated. Tear-inducing. Not because it's sad, because the Muslim rep is that good. Getting into the rest of S.K. Ali's books, you have the sequel to Love From A to Z is Love From Mecca to Medina. It follows Adam and Zainab a couple years after Love From A to Z, taking an Umrah trip. And how exciting is it to see Umrah and Mecca and Medina in a mainstream, traditionally published young adult book. When I saw this title and I saw the synopsis, I was over the moon. I will say this book does have the miscommunication trope, which I know a lot of people dislike. I dislike it, but I love everything about this book. Even if it has that trope, it still works because it's Adam and Zainab and it's S.K. Ali. S.K. Ali has two other books, Saints and Misfits and Misfit in Love. You actually don't have to read this one to understand this one. It's the same characters, but if you go into this one knowing nothing, you can make sense. Saints and Misfits, I think, was actually S.K. Ali's first book published. I could be wrong about that. This one does have a little more mature themes, so I'll put trigger warnings on the screen just so you know it's a little more mature. It follows her struggling through high school like every Muslim does. I love this book. I will say the only thing I didn't like about this book is some of the sections on hijab. But then again, if you take into account who Jenna is, how old Jenna is, it's like a teenager will struggle a little bit with religion in the beginning, but she gets back on the right path. Misfit in Love is the sequel to that. Like I said, you don't have to read the first book to understand it, but it definitely helps because it's the same characters. Not a direct sequel as in you have to know the plot of the first one to know this one. It's just knowing the characters. This one is so cute. I will say, if you've read Love From A to Z and you want to try S.K. Ali's other series of these two, don't expect from Jenna what you expect from Zainab. Zainab and Jenna are two completely different characters. Jenna she's younger, she has that younger mindset, and she can be frustrating at times in the way Zainab maybe won't be. So just don't expect the same. And that holds true because no two Muslim women are the same, right? Just like in general. S.K. Ali does have one more book. It's an anthology of multiple Muslim authors. You can find different races, different cultures in this book, all celebrating the holiday of Eid. Especially with Eid coming up, I highly recommend this read. There's so much joy about the Eid holiday and Ramadan and family, and so cute. It's just a lighthearted, makes your heart warm type of read. See my shelf progressively getting emptier. Some adult reads. These are adult rom-coms by Uzma Jalaluddin. Aisha at Last is a Pride and Prejudice retelling with Muslim characters, and who doesn't love Pride and Prejudice? Hanna Alkaf is a She's Got Mail retelling. Both are absolutely wonderful. They're so funny and so cute. Aisha at Last definitely has that like Mr. Darcy, Elizabeth vibes. There's obviously a lot of frustration in the beginning because they both have such prejudiced opinions of each other, but it ends wonderfully. Hanna Carries On. I actually had never seen She's Got Mail. I know the gist of it, so going in not knowing that, I was pleasantly surprised with the storyline, and this one was so cute. Highly recommend. Uzma does actually have another book coming out called Much Ado About Neda, which is a Much Ado About Nothing retelling, I think. I have an arc for it, so I'll let you guys know how it is. This book. If you follow me on my other platforms, you already know how I feel about this book. Lemon Trees is that book. It is the book. Like, if we're talking top 10 books of all time, Lemon Trees is going to be on this list for my entire life. Talk about a book changing you. Talk about impact. As Long as Lemon Trees Grows is a heart-wrenching beautiful, beautiful story. I'm gonna have to do a whole other video book review so I can fully talk about this book. It is amazing. It is a very intense read. I'll put trigger warnings on the screen. I feel like this is a book where if you can read it, you have to read it. Like, this is a book everybody has to read, and in the midst of all the pain, there is so much hope, and I love it so much. It is Muslim rap. It takes place in Syria. The characters are Muslim. There is a Muslim romance, and I love Kenan and Salama so much. I just love this book so much. That's why I have like 3 copies of it. Next book is Next New Syrian Girl. Recently read this one, and our book club, Medical Book Club, is actually reading it right now. It follows 2 Muslim girls, 2 Syrian Muslim girls. They're in completely different worlds. One grew up in Syria, experienced the hardships, and one grew up in America. And when their paths cross, you see such contrast in their lives, but also how much they have in common. This book was also gorgeous, cried my eyes out. I feel like a lot of people are going to be tempted to comp this to Lemon Trees, and it's similar in that like it follows Syrian characters and their hardships, but I would not say if you like Lemon Trees you'll like this. Like, I think you will actually, but I wouldn't say like they're too similar. People are tempted to do that because they're both Syrian books. This one definitely has more of a, like a young adult, contemporary, modern vibe. Anyway, they're not comparable. Don't compare them. They're both excellent. Book that exists in this space. By the way, for this and Lemon Trees, tissues. Get your tissues. Speaking of tissues. All my rage, Sabbatahir. Now, if you are familiar at all with Sabbatahir's works, you already know the pain she puts us through. I made the mistake of taking this book with me on vacation to read. 50 pages in, started crying, bawling my eyes out. I was on a cruise in public. Great. Will tear your heart out, make you cry. I have not reread it since I read it the first time. I'll let you know when I'm like mentally stable enough to reread it. I've not gotten to that point yet. Muslim rap is great. I will say this book portrays a different side of Muslim rap. You're gonna see characters struggling with their religion, struggling because they're struggling in life. But the important thing is that they find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end. I was very sappy. I won't pull them out, but all of Sabbathir's books and Burn the Ashes are highly recommended if you're looking to read Muslim authors, because her books are fantastic. I realized I kind of started with contemporary unintentionally, so we'll get to like the other genres after this. Salaam with Love. If you're looking for like a fun, cute, quick rom-com, Salaam with Love is your gal. This book actually takes place during Ramadan and Eid. There's some Islamophobia and gun violence in it, but it makes for such a cute read. And I will say it's less of a romance and more of just like family relationships. There is a romance, but it's just, I love reading family relationships and positive family relationships. It just makes my heart so happy, and this book is fantastic. Graphic novels. If you are in the Muslim space online at all, you've heard of Huda Fahmy, better known as Yes, I'm Hot in This. Her cartoons are hilarious. Did you know she has 3 books? So we have Yes, I'm Hot in This, which is just like a collection of her cartoons and graphics that can be arranged. For all of you that got those questions, well, if you can't date, how do Muslims get married? Just hand them this book and run. I'm gonna go through the process with obviously a ton of humor about how Muslims get married. The easiest explanation that this book puts out and that I'll give you is, you know how characters get married in like Pride and Prejudice and that time? Yeah, that's how us Muslims do it. Her graphic novel, Huda FRU, follows Huda the character, not Huda the author. Character is based on Huda the author, but not everything that happens to Huda in this book happened to Huda the author. So that's important to remember. Follows Huda figuring out her identity when they move to Dearborn, Michigan, and she's no longer the only hijabi in her school. That's her actual identity now. So talented, and Huda Fahmy is one of the nicest people I know. So check out her books. These are also perfect for a younger audience as well, if you're looking for that. Back to the shelf. Queen of the Tiles, Weight of Our Sky, both written by the same author. Hanna is an incredible author. She writes the most page-turning, glued-to-the-page type books. Like, you cannot put these books down. I will say both of these books are heavy on the trigger warnings. Weight of Our Sky is definitely a more intense read. I'm gonna put the synopsis on the screen because I don't think I can explain it properly and I don't want to do it injustice. Queen of Our Tiles is a murder mystery. Every time you think you know where this book is gonna go, you're going to be incorrect. So don't even bother. Just read it. Fantastic. Ooh, we are getting through these. Alright, let's get into some middle grade. Hanna Khan, I don't have all her books, but Hanna Khan writes incredible middle grade. Amina's Voice has another book called Amina's Song, and More to the Story is a Little Woman retelling. These are perfect for the young Muslim girls or Muslim women of any age, or Muslims of any age. I've given these to like younger cousins and stuff because they deserve to see themselves represented when they're that age. This one made me cry because it's a little woman retelling. So, without spoilers, Buttercup Beats is a newer one. I read this one last year for the first time. This one was really good. This one touches on the differing opinions in Islam, and not to a controversial point, I don't think, but just to like, we should deserve to have these stories written. Yo, how beautiful is this book? This is Other Words for Home, one of my favorite in-verse books. I had this sprayed by a company, I'll tag them. Other Words for Home is a coming-of-age story following a Syrian refugee who has to leave Syria at a very young age and come to the US, and it's her trying to make sense of her identity as she moves, as well as just her surroundings and her story. It is such a beautiful read. The prose in this book is fantastic. There are some beautiful passages. Highly, highly recommend. I feel like I'm saying that for every book. I recommend all of these. Alright. The shelf is bare bones. We're going to put the shelf back together and then tackle the Muslim rap in my fantasy books on the shelf. I cannot believe I almost forgot to tell you guys about this book. I insisted to not breathe this air, which if you look at my YouTube channel, my very first video was just a live spoiler chat with the authors of this book, so feel free to check that out afterwards. A collection of poems written by 6 different Muslim women actually met when they were attending MIT together. MashaAllah. How cool is that? This is a beautiful poetry collection. It tackles different topics. Well written. Cried my eyes out. I cry often. If you're into poetry at all, I really, really recommend this book. As you can see, we're having some overflow problems. Instead of pulling stuff out, I might just tell you. Thorn by Insanat Kanani has 3 books. Insanat Kanani is a Muslim author who writes diverse fantasy world, and they are fantastic. There's Thorn, Lamp of Sunlight, and A Darkness at the Door, which you can see right up there. And you already know classics like We Hunt the Flame and Birth the Ashes, written by Muslim authors, and I love these books so much. We Hunt the Flame also has auto rep, which I'm going to be making a separate video on. So, you know me, I love We Hunt the Flame. This Woven Kingdom is also written by a Muslim author. Tahira's books and I have a love-hate relationship, and I think I'll make a separate video on it, but I did love the first book of This Woven Kingdom. I'm reading the second book right now, and it's not looking too great, but I loved that first book, and I would recommend it. Squire is also a graphic novel written by 2 Muslim authors. It's pretty good. Of course, The City of Brass, all of Shannon Chakraborty's books, I think are fantastic. I love Shannon Chakraborty as an author. I've seen her on interviews and interviewed her, and her mind, I wish I was that intelligent. I love her book so much. She has such great respect for Islamic history and cultural, like Arab and South Asian culture. City of the Play God, which is actually a part of Recorded Imprints, a Mesopotamian mythology book where the Muslim kid is the hero. And as I read this book, I took it and I handed it to my little brother. I was like, you need to see yourself in books. That was a lot of books. I am beyond overjoyed that I can now say I have this many books with Muslim characters, with Muslim authors, because back in the day when I was reading, I had nothing. If I did have something, it was so questionable and so convoluted to fit Western standards that I could not feel represented in these books. And I love that this is the point where we're at today, that I can pick up a book and see myself, that Muslims across the world can pick up these books and see themselves written on the page. Because our stories matter and they deserve to be told. Shed a tear. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!